Donald Trump vows to strengthen laws on torture. He had advocated waterboarding, but now says he won't order the military to break any laws. His comments have set off a trail of backlash, especially from former Defense Secretary William Cohen.
Back in December, Trump phoned in to Fox News and said he would take out terrorist families in order to defeat ISIS.
But one of the reasons we're so ineffective is, they're using them as shields. It's a horrible thing. They're using them as shields. But we're fighting a very politically correct war.
Yeah. Well, we see that
and the other thing
in
is with the terrorists, you have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families.
Former Secretary of Defense William Cohen is with us from Washington. He also sits on the board of CBS. Secretary Cohen, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
You've been very critical of Donald Trump's advocacy of waterboarding. He said on CBS over the weekend that our laws are too weak to fight the war on terror effectively, given the tactics that ISIS uses, and we need to allow waterboarding. He also said during the debates that if he gave an order, and in this case he was being asked about an illegal order, that he would order those soldiers to do that. He's since provided some clarity on that and said it's within the bounds of the law. But what do you make of what Mr. Trump is saying?
Well, it's disturbing to me. I've been critical of waterboarding for some time now, and I think that anybody who thinks that waterboarding is not torture should be forced to undergo waterboarding and see whether that is tantamount to torture. Secondly, I appreciate Mr. Trump saying that he would now not order any illegal act, but he would like to expand what our military is capable of doing. And I think we need to flesh out, what does that mean? Does it mean putting electrodes to a certain part of the anatomy? Does it mean cutting off one's fingers? Exactly what does it mean? And I think it's incumbent on anyone who advocates that we expand what we do to prisoners of war, to terrorists, have to lay out exactly how far they're willing to go. From my perspective, I think what makes the United States unique, and at least the gold standard as far as our military is concerned and as far as the American people are concerned, is that we don't replicate what others do to us. We don't put people in iron bars and set them on fire or drown them. We don't behead people. That makes us adherents to the rule of law and to a civilized role for the United States and our Western allies. For anyone to suggest we need to go further into torture means that we become like them. And once you start lowering the standards to become like them and do what they do to us, then I think America can no longer lay claim that we're a high, ideal, principled nation. We don't need to do these things in order to win a war. We need to marshal our forces and still hold up the flag of idealism to the world.
But, Secretary, he isn't the only Republican advocating a tougher approach in the war on terror. It seems to be working for Trump and Cruz. Do you understand why that has resonance with American voters?
Well, I think everyone is appalled by what we see taking place on the part of ISIS or ISIL or the Taliban and others. They are a throwback to the 7th century and even further. So we're looking at barbarism, and we feel that we have to do more to beat the barbaric actions of others. I think what we have to do is to certainly marshal our forces to be able to go and kill or capture, but certainly to kill the enemy. But we also have to abide by rules that have been established over the past century, namely that we don't engage in the torture of people that we capture. My friend John McCain went through almost 6 years of torture, day after day after day. I think he's in a better position to understand what that means in terms of, do you get the truth or do you get people just saying anything to avoid the pain? But secondly, I don't want to become part of a country that lops off fingers, that pulls fingernails out, that puts people into sleep deprivation inside of a coffin for days at a time. That's not who we are, and I don't want to be and become that. So for me, it's I think it undermines respect for the rule of law. It undermines respect for the United States. You could see the reaction when we saw the revelation to what took place at Abu Ghraib. When you see the reaction to Guantanamo Bay, Guantanamo, the prison there. So it's not that we're going to change the behavior of those enemies that we face today, they're not going to be impressed by our civility and by our adherence to the rule of law. Nothing is going to change them. I don't want them to change us.
Secretary Cohen, at the end of World War II, the United States and her allies were able to hold the moral high ground during the Nuremberg trials, and we executed, along with our allies, a number of war criminals, Japanese war criminals, Nazi war criminals. That was possible because of the laws that we had in place. How are all these comments going to impact our relationship with our allies now? And more importantly, sir, what does it mean for our soldiers on the battlefield, should we decide to engage in some of the things Mr. Trump is advocating?
Well, we insist upon very strict rules of behavior on the part of our warriors. We hold them accountable when they break those rules. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that we set a standard, even in warfare, that doesn't reduce us to barbarians and to simply the grisly, horrible things that can be done, that one people can do to each other. We want to set a higher standard. So the defense that I was ordered to do this doesn't necessarily hold. That's the rule of Nuremberg. Just because someone gives you an order which you know is fundamentally antithetical to everything that we stand for, it doesn't mean you're obligated to carry it out. In fact, if you do carry it out, you may be held accountable and tried and convicted for a crime against humanity. So I don't want to see our debate descend to that level. I think we want to say that we are setting a standard that others may not follow. But if we descend to their level, to the lower depths of humanity, there's very little that we can take credit for in holding our flag high and saying we're different.
Secretary Cohen, how about the fight against ISIS? Is the Obama administration's current strategy working?
I don't know. I think that, and I've been quite critical of this, I think that we have been too hesitant. I think that we have dithered. I think while President Putin has been dropping bombs and putting his military on the ground, we've been debating what to do. As a result of that, I think we have ceded the power play to President Putin, and that in itself has altered the perception of the role and the strength of the United States in that region. Our allies have become confused, they've become disenchanted, they've become distrustful, and our credibility has been put into question. So I think if we're going to gain that or regain that, we've got to be able to say, this is what we're prepared to do, define it, bring our allies to the cause, and then present Mr. Putin with some choices. Right now, he's in the driver's seat and dictating where the war and how it will be fought. He's using bombs and planes. We're still deciding whether or not we provide even a safe haven for those hundreds of thousands of people who are at risk.
So, Secretary Cohen, does that mean, as some Republicans have advocated, more resources, more troops on the ground?
I think what it means, we need more resources to be sure. We want to have an Arab face for troops on the ground. I think we can have a limited number of special forces, and those special forces can help not only train but equip and help monitor the activities on the ground. But you can't have people who are not experienced in the use of calling in strikes with great precision and expect to be successful. So I think what we need to do is to make sure there's always an Arab face, that we have countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and they have promised to put troops on the ground. They're in the air, and we have to say that the Turkish troops can help, but it has to be an Arab face with the support coming from the United States.
Secretary William Cohen, thank you for your insight.
Good to be with you. Thank you.